although quick to point out that they are good. A friend of mine tells me my homilies are TMI, that they contain too much information. And especially if it's been a long week or it's a tough weekend, it just seems to be overwhelmed. You do this introduction, you may sidebar a teaching, you give 3 points and an action item. Would you just give me one thing to reflect on and to act upon? I would be much happier. Sidebar, my theory on preaching, also teaching and parenting. It's like spray painting the side of a barn on a windy day. You just pray that something sticks. So that's why there's a lot of information that goes out. But as I was listening to today's gospel, it's a portion of a rather long homily that Jesus gives. In fact, it's 32 verses. Today, we just listened to 11 of those verses. And quick, what do you remember from it? Okay, there's a couple things. They're ruminating a little bit. Thank you. You saved the entire congregation today for Deacon Randy. Thank you. But there's a lot there. And I began to have a sense of what my friend was talking about. Today's homily is still a continuation of last week where Jesus speaks about this great reversal. Blessed are those who are poor, they will be rich. Blessed are those who weep, they will laugh, etc. And he continues with that theme of reversal, about things will be changed, things will be different. And in fact, today he gives 16 examples of what that will look like in today's gospel. I think Jesus was doing his version of just spray paint the side of the barn and something will hit. But also notice what those things were about. There's this great urgency, a call to action. A call to action that even is spoken by the words. They're all imperatives. Do this, do this, do this. And with that in mind, and as many as there are, it can very easily be overwhelmed. How do I put this into practice? It's also something that is fighting with us and against us is to take this gospel and put it in light of some of today's cultural values or adaptations of it. I presume that you saw earlier this week that the parents of the young man from Covington Catholic School in Kentucky, the high school of which they were a part of at the Lincoln Mall on January 20th, that they filed a lawsuit. And so it's him, and we also know about the Native American Nathan Phillips and the black Hebrew Israelites. And they have filed a lawsuit against the Washington Post for $250 million for defamation and the ill effects of what it's had on their son. I'm not here to make a judgment about what they were choosing to do. But take what they did, and it happens elsewhere. And how do we put that with the opening lines of the gospel? Love your neighbor. Pray for those who persecute you. Bless those who curse you. Was that entered into the conversation for this Catholic boys' high school? Jesus says, give when someone asks from you. I don't know if anybody was down at the Enterprise Center yesterday for the hockey game. I know that as you walk there, more than likely, someone asked you for some assistance. Did you give it to them? Jesus says, give and don't ask. The other day we had a person come to the rectory looking for some assistance, including gas. Now, for all of you Vincentians here, just close your ears because you don't want to hear what I did with this visitor who came to me. But we talked to her for a while, and then I gave some money for gas and was able to find some other things for them. Give and don't ask. At the same time, later on, Jesus says, give and be amazed. Or do I give and wonder how I'm going to get paid back? Which one do I do? Jesus quotes the golden rule in the gospel story. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Except today I think we have refined that is do unto others before they do it to you. I mean, that sort of has permeated the way we view things. Jesus says, love your enemies. In fact, he says it twice in this story. Love your enemies. Now, this is not a fuzzy feeling, but again, rather the idea of, would you be willing to lay down your life for this person? Would you be willing to wash their feet? Two concrete examples of what it means to love. If I am willing to do that, that's what it means to love my enemy. Those are just a few of the tidbits from the homily. No wonder it feels so overwhelming. Which one do I do? Before I make a suggestion, the one verse that spoke to me most occurs 2/3 of the way through the homily. It's verse 36. Jesus says, in the midst of all these do's, he says, be merciful just as your Father is merciful. Another translation is be compassionate as your Father is compassionate. I like Luke's version so much better than Matthew. Matthew says, be perfect as your Heavenly Father is perfect. And I don't know about your personality type, but that really messes me up bad. At least with compassion and mercy, I think I got a chance. To be merciful. Here's my working definition. The mercy of God is God's love penetrating and permeating the brokenness and the sinfulness of our life story. And that love, when it permeates it, can heal us and set us free. And Jesus is saying, I want you to be an instrument of that. In the places where you and I experience people who are broken, who experience their sinfulness, whether it is in our family, our community, or the world. Can I do that? Compassion, I have a great sense of urgency to act on behalf of someone who is suffering because I can sense their suffering. The compassionate person is not thinking about themselves, and so they're able to be attuned to the suffering of another. Can I be compassionate and respond to another? This is some of the ways to do that. And I think, what we're invited to do is perhaps ground ourselves, be so rooted in these gifts of compassion and mercy. So much so I invite you to reread the homily today and just see how could I be compassionate and merciful in one of these concrete expressions. Again, overwhelming. But what can I do? Once I get rooted in it, I can see real differently, and I can respond differently. There's an old story about a young musician, played the cello, brought his cello to New York, was anxious to participate in Carnegie Hall, and had been invited. But he was from a small town in Missouri. And as he got there, he's asking around, carrying his cello along the streets of New York. It's like, how do I get to Carnegie Hall? How do I get to Carnegie Hall? And finally, there's this very old wisdom guy, probably a homeless person, who says, well, the answer is this: practice, practice, practice. That's how you get there. How do you get to heaven? Practice, practice, practice. So what I'd invite you to do is go through the homily, Jesus's, not mine, and think about, pick one thing. What's one thing that you feel a call to action to? And with the lenses of compassion and mercy, and here comes a crayon rolling down the floor. Cool. With compassion and mercy, practice, practice, practice.